All right. A couple weeks ago, I was sent this article in my inbox. Penn State is a top contributor to Teach for America in 2019. For those who don't know, I went to Penn State, I now work for Penn State, and I was also in Teach for America. So I was interested in this. But my first thought when seeing that Penn State was a top contributor is that this is probably more a factor of how big Penn State is rather than an indicator of quality, good or bad. It says in the article that Penn State, with 25 alumni participants, Penn State ranks among the nation's top 20 large colleges and universities contributing the most graduates. I wanted to see some sources on this information as well as the other colleges. No sources were included. It just links to the generic Teach for America website. I contacted the folks at Teach for America. They never got back to me. But then I contacted the folks who wrote this article, and they actually responded to me with a PDF that Teach for America sent them. So there wasn't a URL they could have linked as the source, but they still could have mentioned that there was a PDF they used. Whatever. The point is we have the source data now. So, as we can see, the greatest amount of alumni came from large schools, 10,000 plus undergrads. This is already looking good for my hypothesis. We can see schools like UCLA at the top with 64, University of California, Berkeley, 63, Texas at Austin, 53, Texas A&M, 50, and then, like the article said, Penn State with 25 alumni participants. These individuals, by the way, were joining Teach for America in this fall of 2019, so these were graduates from the 2018-19 academic year. So, what I wanted to do was take these numbers here and actually graph them against the undergraduate populations of the schools. So what I did was I used this US News site to look up information about each of the individual schools listed on that Teach for America PDF. So for example, UCLA with, 64 Teach for America alumni. I looked them up here. It's talking about total undergraduate population of 31,577. Now I realize that more people than just undergraduates go to Teach for America, but in terms of schools that are sending people to Teach for America, it's almost exclusively undergraduates, so I feel like this is okay. And then also this US News site, it does line up with the Teach for America numbers because this number is also from, as we can see here, undergraduate data are based on the 2018 school year. So the 2018-19 graduating class, which is what Teach for America is tracking. So these numbers line up nicely. And at this point, all that was left to do was graph them against each other and see what we found. So as you can see here, I did just that. Here's the alumni entering Teach for America, the 2018-19 grad class. These are just the numbers from the PDF, the undergraduate population from 2018 to 2019, and then I did this third also data collection, which I'll talk about in a second. So I basically got all these numbers, and then I graphed them with undergraduate population on the x-axis as the independent variable, and then the alumni entering TFA on the y-axis, and here's what I got. So this is the chart of schools that I got. I put labels up for some of them. It gets a little tough to see some of them at a certain point, but we can see a lot of the different schools here, and the trend line as well. So for example, Penn State is right here, and Penn State being below the trend line is basically saying that with 40,363 undergrads, they send fewer people to Teach for America than you might expect for a school with that size. Arizona State University sends almost exactly the same amount of people to Teach for America that you would expect based on their size. A school like UT Austin, or a greater deviation, UCLA and UC Berkeley, they send a lot of people to Teach for America, a lot more than you'd expect based on their size. So that's what it means when they deviate from this trend line. And obviously the trend line is going upwards, and so I think my hunch was at least partially accurate, that a lot of this is really just determined by school size. In fact, the R-squared value is 66.66, rounds up to that, and R-squared loosely means what percentage of alumni entering can be explained by undergraduate population. So with that interpretation, as long as my statistics is correct, if it's not, someone please tell me, 66% of the alumni entering Teach for America in the 2018-2019 grad class, 66% of that number is explained by the undergraduate population size. And so I think that confirms my hypothesis that this is mostly a school size thing. It's not so much a quality of school thing. But I was also interested in how the quality of schools would play into the amount of alumni entering Teach for America. So I mentioned this other data here, and now we'll talk about it. I also looked at the undergraduate ranking of a school in 2018 and 19, and this Best News site also gave that ranking. Now, I'm actually not positive if the ranking is for the 2018 school year or the 2019 school year, but it's close enough, and it's not like I'm trying to have this published in a peer-reviewed journal, so whatever. So basically, I took all of the rankings for these schools ranked by national universities, and I wrote them out here. And then I was going to graph these numbers against the alumni entering Teach for America, with these numbers being the independent variable on the x-axis, these numbers being the dependent variable on the y-axis. One quick note, all of these schools here, these bottom 20 schools in terms of alumni and alumni from Teach for America, which is analogous to these schools, the U.S. News site actually didn't rank them on national colleges. They ranked them on liberal arts colleges, and so I couldn't really include them, and I'll show you what I mean. Pomona College. So before, when UCLA said number 20 in national universities, this said number 5 in national liberal arts colleges, and in fact, every single one of these schools wasn't ranked by US Best News on national rankings, it was just ranked in liberal arts colleges, at least as far as I could tell. So I didn't actually include these last 20 schools in the graph I'm about to show you, even though the first graph did include them, just because the rankings weren't being judged in the same way. Anyway, here is the population, or the scatter plot of the rank of the schools versus the amount of TFA alumni they sent in. What do you think it's going to look like? Okay, so this is it. As we can see, there doesn't appear to be any clear pattern any way or direction. And actually, if you look at the line, it's perfectly flat. It's neither positively correlated nor negatively correlated. And almost as if I were trying to prove a point or trying to make this perfect, the r-squared value is actually 0. So on average, a school's ranking did not affect at all the amount of people it would send to Teach for America, which I think is really interesting. You know, there are clearly other factors aside from undergraduate population size, but school ranking, as judged by U.S. News, is not one of them. So that's really all I wanted to talk about, all I wanted to share. I enjoy looking at statistics, especially when it relates to organizations I've been a part of. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.